Mr. Mayor, Council, I appreciate having a moment to talk about something that's really important for our community. I know most of the people in the crowd were probably here for the sewer project, but we'll disappoint them now and talk about the fire truck. I don't think that I need to go into a whole ton of detail about why fire apparatus are so important to our city. What I'd like to talk about a little bit is the process that we went through and the reason for the need right now and what we're talking about with the replacement of our fire engines. We've got an old fire engine fleet, an aging fire engine fleet that needs to be replaced. And in any city fleet, fire engines are typically the most expensive unit in the city fleet. You know, we're talking $500,000 for engines plus. When you get into ladder trucks, you're talking significantly more than that. You know, routinely over $1 million for ladder trucks. They're expensive pieces of equipment. And so for small municipalities like the city of Moscow, we really have to be careful through this process. There's no such thing as an off-the-shelf fire truck. I think we've all bought things that we look back on and say, oh, I got the wrong one. I did that with a snowboard this weekend and almost broke my wrist. And it's one thing when I'm buying a snowboard, but when we're buying a $500,000 fire truck, we don't get the option to get it wrong. It's something that we have to get right, and we have to get it right up front. Each fire department handles things differently. There's huge differences between volunteer forces. There's differences between where the water is sourced. There's differences between the types of response that they handle. And so each truck is custom built. And so we have to go through quite an extensive process to generate a specification to try and ensure that we're getting the right product for the city of Moscow and for our needs. And doing it in as efficient and cost-effective way as possible. And that's really what we've set out to do and spent the last over 12 months really spending a lot of time and a lot of hours on this process. I'm going to hand this around. This is a piece from, an actual piece from our fire truck. This kind of illustrates the need. This is a common wear piece. This is the pipe, part of the piping system that distributes the water around the truck. And as you'll look at this, there are several places where we've worn through threads and actually worn right through the fitting on these. And, you know, if you think about a fire truck, these aren't on the outside of the truck or readily accessible. And we've got to repair these types of things. You're tearing the entire fire truck apart. And this isn't an anomaly. This is just an example of many of the failures that we're beginning to see.
Tyler, did you request that the new fire truck have stainless steel fittings instead of ones that rust out?
We've got a lot of specifications in there, Jim. There's a 105-page document in there. Anything you're interested in, it's in there. One of the things I'd like to point out is, you know, in that document, I know a lot of us see a 105-page specification and probably don't read every single line item in there. But I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that there are a lot of people in this audience who did read every single line within that. And in particular, I'd like to recognize Rick Benjamin, our fleet supervisor, who worked tirelessly on this in conjunction with Chief Nickerson and his staff, who were just immensely helpful. This kicked off over a year ago. Chief Nickerson led a contingent of people to go to a show in Indianapolis where they show a lot of the newer fire apparatus where people can start to get an idea of what's available. Through that process, we came back and began the generation of a specification. That process was a lengthy process because we wanted to make sure that we got everybody's input. You know, I'm not the one that's going to be out on this truck putting my life in danger fighting a fire. You know, it's the people who are using it, and we want to make sure that we give them the appropriate tools for the job that we ask them to do, and that in the case of the city of Moscow, that they volunteer to do for our community, which is a huge thing. And so we really felt that it is a huge responsibility to make sure. In the fleet department, we really try to ensure that we provide the people with the tools. We do dangerous jobs, and in fleet we have to provide the tools for these people to do those jobs, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And so we had 6 separate meetings with the fire department. We had a kickoff meeting with the entire fire staff and really appreciated their input through the process. It was just critical. Then we went and had individual company meetings where we went out and we had illustrations, drawings, we had different options. We looked at what we have, what we don't, what's necessary. And one of the things that I would like to emphasize, I was really impressed with our fire department in that it's really easy as you look at these things for people to say, oh, I want the Cadillac. You know, whatever's the best, whatever's the best. But they were so practical through the process. They looked at their needs and what the needs of the community are and really worked to get something that was practical but would meet the needs for the city of Moscow. And it was a really great collaborative process. I was just so impressed with how engaged these people were. And you know, it was amazing to see, especially some of the younger volunteers who had studied this and researched this, and they'd come to our meetings with their companies with such great input. You know, and these are volunteers that are giving their time to this, learning about something, and caring enough about our city that they're giving this input. So it was just really a wonderful process to go through. In the end, that resulted in the 105-page specification that you see. We also did extensive research on procurement and what the best method for procurement would be. We have different options for procurement that we can pursue. You can go through a standard bid package, which involves quite a bit of staff time in putting it out to bid. One of the big advantages that we have right now is there are purchasing consortiums that that are available to us, and the Attorney General for the state of Idaho has deemed them legal and okay for us to use. And so we've used these purchasing consortiums for various purchases in recent years. We bought the loader last year through the purchasing consortium, and what it is it's basically it's a government bid process on a big scale. It's like the state bid. The state bid will put out certain vehicles, different pieces of equipment, and then any governmental entity can buy from that. And so it's economies of scale for government is what it really is. It allows us to have a bigger pool, which is really important when we're a small community like us. We're not Los Angeles. We're not buying 100 fire engines a year or something like that. We buy a couple every 15, 20 years, and so in this case 25 years. And so it's really important for us to be able to take advantage of those economies of scale. And so that's what this allows us to do. The purchasing consortium, which we're proposing in tonight's presentation, is Houston Galveston Area Council, is what it's called. It's HGAC. There are two large purchasing consortiums. One's NJPA, National Joint Powers Alliance, and this one's the Houston Galveston Area Council. And those are the two big ones. Fire apparatus is on the Houston Galveston contract. And so the advantage of participating through this contract, as you'll see in the packet, is we experience some significant savings up front, and then we also save the cost of the staff time and the cost of putting it out to bid because we can purchase it through an already bid process. And so what we have before you is a proposal to authorize the purchase of a Pier Saver pumper through the Houston Galveston Purchasing Consortium in the amount of $514,893. And with that, I would stand for any questions you may have, and I've got a lot of people here to help me answer things that I might not be able to.
Tyler, I got a question. You had mentioned 6 meetings with various people. I'm sure that includes Rick from our shop.
Yeah.
So these guys have got to be working on this thing.
I mean, so we want to, now when I read through things like this, that's the first thing I think about. Okay, who's ordering that? Are the guys that are going to be on operating this machine, as well as the guys that have to work on the thing when it services, so on and so forth. So you did a good job in this explaining all that. So good job on it, Tyler. Art.
Where does it come from?
This truck will be built in Florida, and so it's built in Florida. There were some discounts that we could achieve through different items. One of the items it's offered as a discount is if we fly someone to Florida and drive the truck back ourselves, we get a discount. But as we looked at what that discount was worth versus the liability that we'd incur driving the truck back from Florida, we decided that one probably wasn't the best deal, and so we're going to have them deliver it. But Florida is where it's built.
Well, I was going to, you just repeated my second question. Could it come back faster if they just turned on the lights and
ran code the whole way back to Moscow?
John.
I would move to authorize the purchase of a Pier Saver pumper AS 632 fire engine through the Houston Galveston Purchasing Consortium in the amount of $514,893.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by John and a second by Catherine to authorize the purchase of a Pierce Saber Pumper AS632 fire engine through the Houston Galveston Purchasing Consortium in the amount of $514,893.
Your Honor, now that Tyler's given the sexy part of the presentation about speccing and buying it, this represents a kind of a change in course by the city. As you know, last year we accumulated in the budget $277,000 for to see if we could accumulate enough money in order to purchase a truck over a several-year period. Because the council's action at the last council meeting to delay the bond election from May of 17 to May of 18, We were directed to go ahead and see if we could find fund balance in order to fund the purchase of the fire engine. We'll continue. We showed the council a schedule by which we think we're hopeful that we'll be able to integrate that into the budget and not have to depend on a bond election for future purchases.
I'm going to talk a little bit about that after we get done with this
Okay.
motion as well.
Well, technically, the council has not appropriated funding for this, so we will have to do that we'll open the budget officially in August, and we'll bring this purchase through. It's something typically when you haven't appropriated money and authorize it, then we'll approve it in that open budget process. So I just want to make sure the council took that into consideration as well.
I think everybody's good on it, Gary.
Okay.
I'll start to roll with Art.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, now I want to tell you folks, one of the things that Gary had mentioned, because we've been talking about this for a while, and one of the things that I'd like to see as we go along with our budget process is that we implement in our budget process a way of being able to ascertain funds, so periodically we can buy a new fire truck without having a big crunch time on us. It seems to me like the most the best way of doing it, so every so often we can replace a fire truck without having to worry about a bond issue, without having to do a bunch of extra things. And that's something that I have actually tasked our city supervisor when we bring the next budget forward, the 2018 budget, so we can have different presentations so councilors can take a look at that. So with that, I just wanted to share that. That's the direction that I want to see things going. And I'm going to have we'll have a conversation about that in our July workshop with councilors, so, because I'd like to see everybody on board with that. So thank you for the presentation. You guys are going to get a fire truck. 1 year from now, right? It takes a year to build these things, I understand, or something like a year?
Expect to see it in March of 2018.
Sweet. Now, one other thing is, I've never rode in a nice, shiny fire truck. I'm looking now. The good news is I don't expect to drive this thing, and my kids would tell you don't ever let the old man behind the wheel of a fire truck, but I'm excited about this. It'll be great. So anyway, there you have it, fellas. Anyway, and I use that technically, men and women of our department. Thank you so very much. Okay.